Good morning, my dear students. Today we are discussing one more topic. The topic is proteins. So, topic is proteins. So, what is the protein definition? Protein is a organic compound. Proteins is a organic compounds. And the next one, protein is made up of a two or more amino acids. Two or more amino acids combined to form a protein. By a peptide linkage. The two amino acids combine to form a protein. So the protein is containing the genetic information also. Why? Because of the proteins also synthesized from the DNA to RNA to synthesis of proteins. So that's why it containing the genetic information. The next one, the proteins act as a carrier mainly involved in the transportation system. This is about protein introduction. The next one, the proteins are classified into several types. Depends upon the functional classification. The proteins are divided into several types. So what is the first one? First one is a structural proteins. And the second one is enzymes. Enzymes are catalytic proteins. And the next one, transport proteins. The next one, hormonal proteins. The next one, storage proteins. The next classification, genetic proteins. So this is about a classification of the functional classification. So the proteins are classified into several types, depends upon the functional characters. So what is the structural proteins? It gives a particular structural to a for example, hair or the nails. Hair and nails are made up of a keratin protein. The next one, bones also having the particular shape and size, a particular structure. Depends upon the collagen. Examples is structural proteins means it maintains a particular structure to a one particular organ. For example, bone. For example, hair. For example, nail. So these are all made up of a keratin and collagen. Example is keratin and collagen. So the keratin is a synthesis of this. Keratin is presented in the hair and nails. Then collagen is present in bones. The next one, enzymatic or catalytic proteins. So enzymatic and catalytic protein, these proteins are involved in the increase the rate of reaction. Is known as the enzyme or catalytic activity. The enzymes are involved in the biosynthetic reactions. These enzymes are involved in the biosynthetic reactions. What is the examples? Hexokinase and pepsin. The next one, transport enzymes. So the enzymes are involved in the transfer of the one group, transfer of the one chemical, transfer of the one biosynthetic reaction, transfer of the any other molecule in the body, one place to other place. Example, hemoglobin. The next one, serum. So the hemoglobin is mainly involved in the transportation of the oxygen and carbon dioxide in the body. Oxygen and carbon dioxide in the body. The hemoglobin is also made up of a protein. The serum is also made up of a protein. It containing the RBC, WBC. So the serum, it maintains the RBC, WBC transport system and platelets also. So this is the transport proteins. The next one, hormonal proteins. The hormonal proteins example is the insulin. Insulin. Example is the insulin. The next one, growth hormone. Growth hormone. The insulin is maintain the blood glucose level. Insulin is maintain the blood glucose level in the body. The growth hormone is maintain the organs. Maintain the organ size. So the hormones is the maintain the normal values in the body. The hormonal proteins examples is the insulin. Insulin is also made up of it's synthesized from a protein, and growth hormone also synthesized from a protein. The next one, these two are the act as a proteins. So it maintain the organ size, shape, structure, and as well as the blood glucose level. The next one, storage hormones. The storage hormones means ovalbumin and glutamine. Example is ovalbumin and glutamine. So any information regarding to the genetic information, either transport information, any other information stored by the ovalbumin and glutamine. So the albumin is presented in the eggs. The eggs is convert to a next generation from the parent and daughter generation is present in the eggs. The eggs containing the ovalbumin. So the ovalbumin is mainly involved in the synthesis of a new generation and production of a new generation from the ovalbumin. So that is the storage proteins. The next one, genetic proteins. Genetic proteins is examples is nucleoproteins. Examples is nucleoproteins. So nucleoproteins example, what is the nucleoproteins? It containing the DNA, RNA and chromosomes. DNA, RNA and chromosomes. So the DNA and RNA, these are presented in the nuclei. The nuclei is some parts are made up of a protein. Examples are DNA, RNA and as well as a chromosomes. These are involved in the synthesis of a proteins. DNA converts to RNA, RNA converts to proteins. So that is called as a genetic proteins. So the protein is classified into several types, depends upon the functional. And the next one, depends upon the chemical nature. Depends upon the chemical nature. The proteins are classified into mainly three types only. What is that? Simple proteins. First one is simple proteins. Second one is conjugated proteins. And third one is the derived proteins. So what is the simple proteins? They are composed only amino acid is known as a simple proteins. They are composed only amino acid. It containing only amino acid. There is no having any substances is known as a simple proteins. What is the conjugated proteins? They are containing the amino acid, protein containing the non-protein group also. So it containing the amino acid, protein group and as well as a non-protein group also presented in the conjugated proteins. So what is the simple protein? The simple proteins is only containing the amino acids. But conjugated proteins is containing the amino acids, protein group and a non-protein group also. The next one, the next one, derived proteins. The derived proteins is a denaturated or degraded products, simple and conjugated proteins. It mixing of the simple and conjugated proteins. The next one, these are the denaturated proteins. These are also known as a denaturated Denaturated proteins. So this is called as a chemical classification. So the simple proteins are again classified into two types. The simple proteins are again classified into two types. What are there? One is the globular proteins. Globular proteins, and the next one is the fibrous proteins. Globular proteins and fibrous proteins. So what is the globular proteins? These are spherical in shape or oval in shape. Spherical or oval in shape. Spherical or oval in shape. And the next one, it is a soluble in water. Soluble in water. Soluble in water. So what is the examples? Albumin, globulin, and etc. Then what is the fibrous proteins? They are fiber-like in shape. They are fiber-like shape. Fiber shape. They are insoluble in water. Insoluble in water. The next one, insoluble in water. The next one, example. What is the examples? Collagen. Collagen. The next one, elastin. Elastin and keratins. Elastin and keratins. So these are the example for the globulin and fibrous proteins. The next one is the conjugated proteins. So what is the conjugated proteins? The conjugated proteins is a mix of amino acid, protein group and non-protein group also. Example, what is the examples of the conjugated proteins? So what is the nucleoproteins? Examples is a nucleoproteins. Nucleoproteins. The nucleoproteins containing the nucleic acid and prosthetic group. Nucleic acid and prosthetic group. Nucleic acids means DNA or RNA, and prosthetic group example is the histones. So these are the conjugated proteins. Example is the nucleoproteins. The nucleoproteins, what is the conjugated? It contains the amino acid, protein group and non-prosthetic group. So what is the amino acid and prosthetic group? DNA and RNA. What is the non-prosthetic group? Is the histones. Examples is the histones. The next one example is the glycoproteins also. Glycoproteins. In glycoprotein, prosthetic group is the carbohydrate. In glycoprotein, prosthetic group means protein group. Protein group is the carbohydrates. The next one, it containing the ovum and mucin, saliva. These are all the example for the glycoproteins. The next one, derived proteins. The derived proteins again classified into two types. What are there? One is the primary, second one is the secondary. Primary derived proteins, secondary derived proteins. So what is the primary derived proteins? So the primary derived proteins are examples is the coagulated proteins. Examples is the coagulated proteins. The next one, metaproteins. So the metaproteins. Second one is examples is the peptones. The next one, peptides. So this is called as a protein classification. The next one, what is the functions of proteins? The proteins are classification. The next one, function. It acts as a carrier, mainly involved in the transportation of the one chemical, one compound from one place to other place. The next one, it gives a energy to our body. These are involved in the biosynthetic reactions also. The next one, these are the upon hydrolysis of protein, it gives a amino acid. The next one, the proteins are involved in the storage of a genetic information. and etc. functions and etc. function. This is about proteins and classification and functions. If you have any doubts, tomorrow we will discuss.